Our postural habits are our home. It's where our body feels most comfortable inside of itself, but it doesn't always mean that it's the most optimal for the health of all the tissues of our body, especially if our posture has us living at end range. For example, the pelvic thruster archetype. The pelvic thruster archetype has a very posteriorly tilted pelvis and it shifts quite forward. This creates a deep hinge in the low back, a deep back extension there, and the rest of the spine has to sort of candy cane crane over to be able to upright itself. Now, I'm doing a pretty extreme version of this, but it's a pretty common postural archetype that bodies find their way into. It leads to low back pain, SI joint pain, and even knee and thigh pain. So one way to find out if you're a pelvic thruster is to hold an iPhone cord or cell phone cord and just drop it down off the side of your hip. Now, if the end of the cord, the charger, lands by your toes, that means your center of mass is way far forward. How do you get out of that? Well, you got to back yourself up and a little bit rearrange some of the architecture so that you're landing more closely to your heel, or even better, stable on the centers of your arches. Now, I'm not a pelvic thruster, I'm more of the twerk archetype, but nonetheless, I want to show you an exercise that I use regularly. It's so subtle, it's so simple, just to help maneuver your joints so that your pelvis finds itself not at end range at either end of the spectrum. And I call these the Pelvic Rocks. I actually learned them from my friend Gary Ward, the founder of Anatomy in Motion. He calls them cogs. So let's get down on the ground and give it a try. To begin, let your body settle in half corpse pose or constructive rest position. You let your breath come and go. And then begin to slowly anteriorly tilt your pelvis as much as it will go, which might seem like a really awkward thing. So when you do that, you're going to feel a big arc in your lower back, also in your thoracic spine, your ribcage spine. And as that pelvis anteriorly tilts and the tension grows up, your neck, your cervical spine will actually nod and your chin will move down towards your chest. Then slowly reverse it. You'll posteriorly tilt your pelvis. And as you posteriorly tilt your pelvis, the spine bridge between your pelvis and your head changes. So the lumbar spine drops into the floor, the thoracic spine also drops into the floor, but your neck does the opposite. It extends and your head nods back. You anteriorly tilt. The chin gets pulled into a nod, and you posteriorly tilt. Pelvis changes shape, and that ripple effect goes all the way up, and your head nods back. I recommend doing this in ultra slow motion and trying to remove from your mind, or rather remove from your body, a muscular tension activity with this. I know that seems like a crazy concept, but when I do these, I try to imagine myself as a gelatinous jellyfish type of organism and use a minimum amount of energy to make this happen. Or I imagine that this is being done to me by an outside force and my body is just going along for the ride as passively as possible. You can also start to click into that the posterior tilt is an exhale and the anterior tilt is an inhale. The slower you go with this, and the more slowly you can move your attention through the joints of your hips, pelvis, low back, upper back, neck, spine, the better results you'll have, and it will tranquilize you. It will put you into a really excellent, exquisite parasympathetic state. So after you do that for a few minutes, you might feel yourself elongated. I feel myself elongated, even though I'm under the pressure of being on camera here. I can just feel my axis get longer. And then what you want to do afterwards is recheck your posture, just its natural inkling. Stand back up, feel your way into your posture home. If you have a plug, stick it to the side of your hip, drop it down, and find out which posture you're more plugged into.